GamingBolt presents the top 15 toughest bosses in the Gears of War series. Gears of War is one of the most famous series in gaming, having popularized, not invented, the cover-based third-person shooter genre. As such, the series stagnated after Cliff Bleszinski left Epic Games, but Microsoft's purchase of the IP and the eventual Gears of War 4 helped bring it back. Let's take a look at some of the toughest bosses you can face in the series. Please note that this list is in ascending order, from least difficult to most. General Karn, Gears of War Judgment. For a guy who's supposed to be the predecessor to General RAAM, Karn was just there. Keep in mind that this guy led the charge on Emergence Day, and had a mutated corpser named Shibboleth as his steed. But even with his incendiary launcher and Shibboleth providing lots of firepower, Karn was pretty easy to bring down. Skorge, Gears of War 2. This may not be the toughest fight in the Gears of War series, but it's one of the coolest. Marcus Phoenix duels with Skorge several times with chainsaws, shooting Skorge from a distance and repeating the process as necessary. Eventually, Skorge retreats and catches up to Marcus and Dom in the air, thanks to his trusty Hydra. Eventually, you'll shoot him down, and Skorge dies upon hitting the ground. Brumak, Gears of War 3. One of the biggest threats in Gears of War 1, and which eventually mutated into something hideous in Gears of War 2, was actually pretty easy to overcome in Gears of War 3. You meet a Brumak on the shore near the Sovereign's wreckage. Target its wrist guns, aim at its backpack, which doesn't need too many shots to blow up, and the Brumak goes down. With gears accompanying you, plenty of cover, and the Brumak barely moving, this fight is easy. Brumak, Gears of War. The Brumak in Gears of War 1 is slightly tougher though. You only have Dom with you during this fight, which is usually a death sentence given how often he falls. This fight is also tough because you have a normal Lancer which does less damage than the Retro Lancer in Gears of War 3, and there are more open spaces to take fire from. Regardless, shoot the Brumak's wrist guns, then its feet, and kill the Locust Gunner to start the eventual finishing sequence. Lambent Leviathan, Gears of War 3. Maneuvering the hulking Silverback isn't as tough as it seems, and really, all you have to do is shoot the Lambent Leviathan's face. The fight itself is pretty dragged out, and you can take some pretty heavy damage on higher difficulties. Otherwise, actually reaching this fight is tougher than the actual fight. That, Gears of War 4. This is perhaps the most cinematic of all of the Gears of War fights. Near the end of the game, you'll confront That, a giant swarm creature with tentacles. Luckily, you have a giant mech to fight it with. The fight involves destroying tentacles and ensuring they don't grow back before picking up your assisting helicopter's rotor blades to lop off its arms. The restrictive movement of the mech can be somewhat annoying, but otherwise, That goes down quick. Leviathan, Gears of War 2. When you first learn that something is lurking beneath the water, it becomes pretty obvious that every scenario in Gears of War is the worst case scenario. That being said, the main crux of the Leviathan fight is how good you are at grenade throws. Shoot the tentacles as they latch onto the boat, and when the Leviathan reveals itself, chuck a grenade down its throat. It takes some doing, but there's only slight room for error. Corpser, Gears of War. The Corpser in the mines can be more annoying than difficult. You need to target its belly and shoot its chin while the Corpser is rearing back. The goal of this fight is to push the Corpser near the edge of the platform, which is held up by 2 clamps. Lure the Corpser to destroy those clamps and fight off wretches in the meantime. If you know what you're doing, this fight ends quick. Beserker, Gears of War. One of the most memorable fights in video games is your first run-in with a Beserker. The beast's main weakness is being blind, but that's covered by its supernatural hearing. Unless you move slowly, the Beserker can pinpoint you and run you over, which is an instant kill in higher difficulties. The actual fight itself revolves around the Beserker breaking down walls for you and finally being burned by the Hammer of Dawn. Overall, a fun fight, but one that presents its own set of challenges for first-time players. Swarmak, Gears of War 4. What makes the Swarmak tougher than its brethren from previous games is the fact that you can't just gun it down. Not at first, at least. First, you have to run around, activating power cores and electrocuting the beast. You then have to shoot the glowing spots on its body while also killing any drones that come close to you. The Swarmak still has quite a bit of firepower, but as long as you stick to the high ground and take cover, it will go down. Snatcher, Gears of War 4. The Snatcher in Gears of War 4 can be either intriguing or annoying for most players. Once it downs you or an ally, it will snatch that person up. If you're the unfortunate victim, that means having to shoot your way out before permanent death. Not only does the Snatcher move fast, and it downs you pretty quickly, but it has a fair bit of health as well. Lambent Beserker, Gears of War 3. The fight doesn't start until you run away from the Lambent Beserker and allow the Hammer of Dawn to converge beams on it. When it survives, which is a fairly big uh-oh moment, you have to deal with it constantly charging, firing gooey projectiles and leaving poisonous emulsion trails in its wake. Even with a weak spot to shoot, the Lambent Beserker is relentless and takes a while to die. General RAAM, Gears of War 3 RAAM's Shadow. Now this is a fine, multi-tiered fight that strikes a good balance between tough and entertaining. The fight itself starts with closing E-holes, then knocking General RAAM off of his Reaver. From there, you need to avoid his Krill, down RAAM, close more E-holes, and battle more Reavers. It's a longer fight than the Gears of War version of RAAM, but it's somewhat easier and more enjoyable, especially since you have more room to move and more competent AI partners. Queen Myrrah in Tempest, Gears of War 3. When you're not dealing with the Tempest flitting about, which can only really be dealt with behind cover, there will be Shriekers and guards to battle as the fight progresses. That doesn't include using the Hammer of Dawn to damage the Tempest and being careful to run while it's glowing blue. The fight itself is fairly tough at higher difficulties, but still very doable. General RAAM, Gears of War. Leaving aside the fact that General RAAM has a swarm of krill at his command that can tear you apart and a huge machine gun, any semblance of simplicity that this fight could have had is further messed up by Dom's continuously falling in the worst places, making him pretty much useless even as a meat shield. Oh well, at least the torque bow makes this fight easier. Good luck on insane difficulty though. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.